Before I start my talk, I wanted to, first of all, say thank you all. Last week I shared with you that my brother-in-law was at that moment getting a lung transplant. And he's had a pretty rough week this week, but things look very hopeful. And so continued prayers would be greatly appreciated for him. His name is Kenny, so thank you. We're grateful. Okay, so we are in our third week of a series called Thy Will Be Done, and this series has been written by Mindy Aldlin, who also wrote the book What If It All Goes Right, and this is a 6-week series, and it's a video-based series this time, so people who are in spirit groups are actually watching a DVD and then talking about things throughout the DVD. And so what this series is about is Mindy says, what if God's will for us is to merge our divine self and our physical self, our human self, and really bring those into such an incredible alignment that we're living our most amazing life because we're really bringing forth that spiritual being that we are. I think last week I shared a quote that said, you don't have a choice to be spiritual, you are. You are that. There's no choice to be that. You are spirit. So that's what it's about, is bringing this together. Well, she has 5 spiritual disciplines that she talks about that she believes can help us merge these two. They are communion, connection, compassion, community, and challenge. And so we talked first about communion, and this is our communion with the God of our understanding, and really taking that time on a daily basis to just be and to experience the presence of God in whatever way we would experience it that. But we also talked about that we're always connecting. We're always in that communion because as we look out at nature and we're filled with that, as we're with our friends, with our animals, that's also our communion time. And then we talked about connection. And last week we talked in particular about connection with those who are spiritually like-minded. Because the reality is that we live in a community and communities and in a world that is vastly unlike what we think and believe. More people are waking up to it, but it's nice to be able to commune with each other, to connect with each other in that way, and how important that is. And then, so today, what Mindy says is that the first two are like our inhale, the communion and the connection. And then we're going to go into exhaling. And this is about compassion. So I wanted to share with you some quotes. Never look down on anyone unless you are helping them up. Today, give a stranger one of your smiles. It may be the only sunshine he sees all day. Mark Twain said, compassion is the language the deaf can hear and the blind can see. And treat everyone with politeness, even those who are rude to you, not because they are nice, but because you are. That's a big one, isn't it? That's a big one for us. So we're going to share an affirmation together. So let's say this together. With wisdom and compassion, I open my heart to all people. So in the book Spiritual Intelligence by Cindy Wigglesworth, she shares that love is like a bird with 2 wings. And one wing is wisdom and one wing is compassion. And love can't really be the full expression of love without wisdom and with compassion. And so obviously today we're focusing on the compassion part. Now Webster says that compassion means to suffer with. It doesn't sound like a very fun thing, does it? To suffer with. However, compassion is actually the emotion that we feel in response to the suffering of others that motivates us with a desire to help. It's not just sympathy or empathy. The definition I like the best is that compassion is the desire to help alleviate the suffering. So we want to help others alleviate the suffering that they're experiencing. Now, Jesus absolutely exemplified compassion. I'm not going to go through all of these. These are just a few of the many scriptures on compassion. But that's what he was about. Jesus was always, meeting people where they were, but then he always saw them as he knew them to be, and he wanted to lift them up. He wanted to give them a hand up. He wanted to help them, and whether it was people who nobody else would be around, people with leprosy, he was right there. Whether it was people who nobody liked, like the tax collectors, he was right there with them, and he was just with people, just whatever they were going through, he was just there with them. And he said, follow me, I am showing you the way here. And one of those ways is this kindness and this connection and this compassion. And I don't know about you, but I know that our world could really use a lot more compassion. Do you think so? Absolutely. And so who's going to start that? Yes, we are. Absolutely. Okay. How many of us have heard the golden rule before? Let's say it together. Do unto others. Yes. We all got that one down. Well, pretty much every religion has some form of the golden rule. I'm not going to share those all today, but I invite you to Google that and just see all the different religions and how they form the golden rule. But this is something that is just across the board, that, however it is that we would like to be treated, this is how we are to show up with other people. However we would like to be spoken of, that's how we speak of other people. However we would like to be thought of or be given to, this is how we treat other people. But one of the scriptures to me that underlies all of this is the great commandment that Jesus gave us in Matthew 12:31. And he said, love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, all your mind, and all your strength. And the second is this: love your neighbor as yourself. There is no commandment greater than these. Now, when you look at this commandment, we don't need all the other commandments, because if we're doing this, we wouldn't be doing any of those other things, right? But to me, the beauty of this commandment is it not only gives the commandment, but it tells you how to do it. So he says, love the Lord your God with all your heart, your soul, your mind, and your strength. And do you know how you do that? By loving yourself and by loving your neighbor as you love yourself. It's so important that we love ourselves, that we recognize the incredible beings that we are, that we recognize how perfect we really are, no matter what has ever happened in our lives, no matter what we've ever done, that we are just beautiful, spiritual, divine beings, and learning to love ourselves from that place. And then we give that same love out. Because when we get it about ourselves, then we start to see it in other people, no matter how they're showing up. We start to remember and to recognize that. And so when we're loving ourselves and we're loving others, we're loving God with all our heart, all our soul, all our mind, and all of our strength. Because we're all expressions of God. We are God expressing. And it's when we're loving every living thing. We're loving nature. We're loving every living thing. That is when we are truly stepping up and we are loving God. And remember that we are the body of Christ. And if one of us is hurting and one of us is suffering, it does affect all of us. And what greater thing could we do than to be there for somebody in that time and to be with them in a way that they feel the sincerity of our heart and our desire to help alleviate their suffering. Now, Mindy shares what compassion is not. So first of all, compassion is not poor you, poor little you. Let me see what I can do to help you. That is not compassion. Compassion is also not having an agenda. And I really liked this one because she said, what this means is that we aren't giving what we think the other person needs, but rather that we're taking the time to listen to the needs of the person and be willing to give what they need. And that's really, really important. I find this especially when someone has lost a loved one. And, we don't know what to do, and we give what we think they might need. But if we take time to just be with them, and a lot of times that's all they need, and ask them, what can I do for you? How can I support you? How can I help you through this? And let them kind of guide you in that. It's just so important. And the other thing that compassion is not, it's not compassion fatigue. It means that I love my neighbor as I love myself. If I'm not loving myself, if I'm not filling my cup, if I'm not getting sleep, if I'm emptying out my bank account all the time and not able to pay my bills, then that's going to lead to compassion fatigue. And that's not true compassion. But she said what compassion is compassion is saying, I've been there. I may not know exactly how you feel, but I understand. True compassion is saying, you know what, it could be me. Because the reality, you guys, at any time, it could have been any one of us. Given any situation, it could be me. And it's giving from a place of oneness, of connection, and of equality. And it's really remembering that so that we're not going in with any superior attitude, but that we're really meeting people right as equal, as one, as there is no lesser or greater. That we are all here to be connected to each other in absolute oneness, right? Yes, absolutely. So compassion is connection. So I wanted to share, first of all, a story about what compassion might look like. Now, Jesus said, become ye as little children, because children teach us so much. And I actually read this on Facebook last week, and then they put it on the Today Show. But it's such a beautiful little story, and it's a story about a little girl named Nora. And her mom had said that the night before her 4th birthday, she kind of had foreshadowed a remarkable event. Because as she was picking her up from school, she saw an elderly person going across the street. And here's what little Nora said. She said she just has a soft spot for mature folks. And Nora says, I like old peoples the best because they walk slow like I walk slow, and they have soft skin like I have soft skin. They all going to die soon, so I'm going to love them all up before they is died. And so she shared this on Facebook. Well, the next day was her 4th birthday, so they go to the grocery store, and they have one of those carts that has like the little vehicle in the front, so the 2 kids are in the front, and she's like looking at she's picking something up, and she hears her little daughter Nora say, "Hi, old person, it's my birthday today." And she was just like, oh, as she turned around, before she could say anything to Nora, she saw this older man, and he was just kind of hunched over. He was not shaved. His hair was kind of just all over there, and he just looked really down. But as soon as he heard that, he kind of looked up and he walked over to this little girl, and he, just started talking to her, and, well, hello, little lady, how old are you today? And so it was just a really nice interaction, and then they went on their way. Well, a couple aisles over, they ran into him again, and Nora really wanted her picture taken with this man for her birthday. And so I love what the mom shared. She said, Nora placed her soft hand on top of his soft hand. He wordlessly stared at her with twinkling eyes as she kept his hand in hers and studied his skinny veins and weathered knuckles. She kissed the top of his hand and then placed it on her cheek. He beamed. I asked his name, and he told us to call him Dan. And so that interaction ended, and she decided to post a picture of Nora and Dan, the one that they had taken in the grocery store. And what happened was that somebody saw the picture and they knew who he was. And they just shared, that you have no idea what a blessing this was for this man. Well, what had happened is that just a few months earlier, he had lost his wife. And since he had lost his wife, he'd just been so heartbroken and so downtrodden. And so they got his number, and they called him up and they went to his house. And she said it was like he was a different person. His hair was cut, he was shaved, he had, he was up straight and had nice clothes on. And they've developed a relationship where they go over every week to see him now. And he told them, he said, you have no idea what a gift that this has been for me, because he just felt absolutely lost. And I love that story because it reminds us to get past, recognize when we're in those ideas of separation and where we're not even paying attention. I think that's the biggest thing, is we're not even paying attention. We're so hurrying through everything, whether it's the grocery store or work and going in the house, not even seeing our neighbors, and hurrying through our family things, that we're not even paying attention enough to see that there is somebody who is in need in some way. And I promise you, we're everywhere. We are everywhere. Other ways that we can reach out and connect with people sorry about that. We can do things like, you see a little lost animal who's lost its owner, and you take the time to return that animal to its owner. Or you have some elderly people in your neighborhood, and you make it a point to go and introduce yourself and just create a connection, and you'll know what to do from there. We have I talk about this, but people on the sides, the corners of the streets. We have a lot more people on the corners of the streets with signs. And I watched one day, and I watched people going by, and it was just like, that, there was not even a look towards that person. And I understand that. It's uncomfortable. And yet, wow, it's as though they don't exist. They don't matter. And so it's not that you have to physically give them something, but what if you just looked at them and just sent a blessing from your heart to them? Or maybe you do want to give them something. You could put a little baggie, make little baggies up and put a couple dollars in there, an affirmation. You could put some other stuff in there. And then for each person, you would be able to hand something to them. And you guys, they don't want to be there. They don't want to be there. I mean, can you imagine having to go to a street corner because you don't have enough food, you don't have gas, you don't have money for utilities? And we hear these stories all the time, don't we? This is what people do for a living. Well, maybe there's a few, but I guarantee you it's not the majority. And what a difference. That's a wonderful place for us to start. Now, I read this thing and I just love this. This is how we can be ready, get ourselves to that place where we are open to seeing, to paying attention. So the first one is examine your heart frequently. And what this is about of, asking ourselves, when is the last time that I actually looked at somebody to see if they were in need of something? Sometimes somebody is just feeling really low and they just need somebody just to say, hey, how you doing today? Are you okay? Is there anything I can do? It could be something as simple as that. When's the last time that I recognized somebody in pain, but I didn't do anything? And, what could I do? So it's just really examining our heart on a regular basis. The second thing is make an appointment with the great physician and pray. And I'm going to tell you, this is the prayer. Create in me a clean heart, oh God. Create in me a clean heart, oh God. Because I want to see past all my preconceived judgments and ideas. Create in me a clean heart. And then the third one is form healthy habits. And I love this because she said, change your behavior from looking only inward and start looking outward. And you can do this in, greeting neighbors, saying hi to people. It just floors me sometimes when I'm out somewhere and I'm walking and, people have their heads down, whether it's in the mall or out walking, and I'm always want to say, hello, hi. And so, just let yourself be uncomfortable and, say, hi, how you doing today? And, you be the one to start that. Listen carefully when people are speaking. And this is a big one because we get so our minds are so going all the time, the next thing we have to do, or the next thing we want to say, that we're not really listening carefully to what somebody is saying. So listen carefully. And then exercise regularly. And this isn't just about regular exercise. This is about practicing generosity and discovering the joy of giving. Instead of waiting for those in need to come to you, you go to them, find new ways to help, and you may want to find out ways that you can actually be in service in your own spiritual community or in the community as a whole. So I'm going to share a couple of those with you today. We are creating a team called the Compassion Team. And the Compassion Team is a group of people here, and we hope to have a huge group of people, that the idea behind this is when somebody's in the hospital, having surgery, have gone through a really hard thing of losing a loved one or anything like that, that there are people here in this ministry who are there for you. And so Stella Wilson had this great idea, and I loved it, and it's the idea of an umbrella. And the idea being that, when you have an umbrella and you're giving a hand up for someone else. You're holding that umbrella up with your hand. So we're giving a hand up for someone else. And so some of the ways that you could be a part of this team, first of all, I have to say this. If something's going on, you got to let us know. We've had people say, I was in the hospital and nobody called me or came. And we're like, we didn't know. Did you have anybody contact us? Well, no. Okay, we need you to let us know. If you're having a surgery coming up, something, just whatever, you need some support, let us know. And so then we need somebody who might be a liaison, and that person would be the one to connect with whoever could use a little support during that time and find out what their needs are. And then someone who likes to mail cards, or then make a phone call to the person and get together with them to set some things up, or making visits to the hospital or to the home, or transportation is a big one. Transportation to and from doctor's appointments, and transportation to the grocery store. And here's the thing I want you to know. Because you get called doesn't mean that you have to do it at that moment. We recognize that things are happening in everybody's lives, but if we have a huge team, then we can make a lot of calls, and there will be enough people to be in support of whatever is happening there. So please prayerfully consider this. Michelle has a wonderful volunteer table set up out there, and the Compassion Team is one of those lists, so please sign up for that. Now, I want to share with you a way to get out into the community. And this came to me last week, and I love this. This is through Community Partnerships of the Ozark, and it's called Hope Connection. And it's happening Wednesday, November 16th from 9 to 3 at Springfield Expo Center. What this is about is for homeless people, or people who are really just trying to find a job, trying to get back on their feet. What this offers is all kinds of resources for them. And so I was listening to some of the people that benefited from it, and they said, they had a place where you could go and you could get foot warmers and socks. And then they had a place where you could go and you could get an eye exam. There's people who haven't had eye exams in years and need glasses, and they would get glasses right on the spot. There's places you can go and find out about jobs that are available. And our job would be to be a guide that day. You do have to be available from 9 to 3. There's a training on Tuesday that's about a 20-minute training. But what a wonderful way to be in service in a compassionate way to really a large community of people here in Springfield and in the surrounding communities. So please do write that down, write the website down, and I invite you to go check it out. But there's a lot of other opportunities as well for us to be out there. And we can do that individually, but we're also going to look at doing that collectively. So your homework for this week, your assignment, if you choose to accept it, is first of all to go to that place and just create in me a clean heart, oh God. Create in me a clean heart. And then make the decision to pay attention. Pay attention. Recognize. And if you drive past that person and you don't look over, don't beat yourself up. Just go, oh, wow, okay, I missed an opportunity there. This is just about feedback. Our life is just about feedback. And the feedback that we get can help us make another choice. But we need more compassion in the world, yes. Yes, yes. And we are the ones, you guys, we are the ones. And especially anytime, but especially this week. As we do move out into this week, as we're going to the polls to vote, we know that, this has not been the most positive campaign. But if we're prayed up, we have the opportunity just to be present and just to emanate that love. Because love is the only presence and power. And love will always win. Yes? Yes. Okay, so we're going to close with this affirmation again together. With wisdom and compassion, I open my heart to all people. And so it is. And namaste, namaste.